We are now nearly a third of the way through the 2025-26 League One campaign, and in today's video we're going to be assessing and maybe reviewing my pre-season relegation predictions, and now potentially re-predicting and deciding who I think at this stage in the season will be getting relegated from League One this campaign. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, then please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Can we try and hit 160 likes on today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. Nobody wants to be relegated, but let me know down below which 4 teams do you think will go down this season, and also let me know down below when you do your predictions who do you support as well, because I guess that could maybe sway some things with rivalry and all that sort of stuff. But let's go through all the teams then. We'll obviously start out at the top and rule out any teams that definitely won't be going down at this season. Stockport, Bradford, Cardiff, Stevenage, Lincoln, none of them have got even a single slight percentage of a chance of going down this season. Wimbledon are an interesting one because a lot of people back them to be relegated this season. I thought they'd finish bottom, but they've had a great start to the season. I don't think they'll go down. Bolton have had a recent upturn in positivity, but I think, again, nobody would have expected Bolton to go down this season. Mansfield, I saw a few people predict a bit in and around there, but for me, I think they'll have more than enough to stay up this season. They can be quite streaky at times. Obviously, at the moment, they're on a good run, but I don't think they will go down this year. Huddersfield, as bad as a manager that League Ran is, if you want to see me rank all the League One clubs' managers, then let me know that down below. But as bad of a manager he is, there's too much quality in that squad for them to go down. Luton, again, same can be said about them. Obviously, poor start to the season under Bloomfield. Jack Wilshere's had a bit of an inconsistent start, but certainly does look positive, and I think, again, there's too much quality in that side. Same can be said about Barnsley. Very, very good starting 11, probably top 6 standard for this level, but it's just the squad depth that is letting them down, and they've obviously been on a very bad run of form lately. Doncaster, yes, they've recently been on a bad run of form, but I think they probably will have enough to stay up this season. I don't think they're not going to win another game until the end of the campaign, but at this stage I'm not overly concerned about Doncaster, but they are only 5 points above the drop zone, having played a game more than a fair few of them teams below. So I think anybody from 12th downwards is a real contender for relegation at this moment in time. Well, not a real contender, but they're in the conversation and they should certainly be spoken about. So Doncaster, I guess you could put in there. Wigan, I think they'll be fine come the end of the campaign. Again, they've had a lot of inconsistencies so far this season, but I think there's some decent players in that Wigan side, and I think Ryan Lowe is a decent enough manager for this level. Leyton Orient, I think they'll be fine. Again, I know they've conceded a lot of goals so far this season with 23, but they've also scored a lot as well. I think they've got the joint most amount of goals scored by any team outside of a playoff position at this moment in time. It's just conceding. They've conceded the second most in the entire league, but I think for me, they've got one of the best managers in the division in Richie Wellens, so I think Leyton Orient will be fine at this season. Recently, Rotherham United have had a upturn in form. It's 10 points picked up from their last 12 points available, and while that has been a good run of form, scoring goals this season for them has been a bit of a problem, and I do think Rotherham, for me, are still in that sort of mix for relegation. I'm still not entirely convinced on Matt Hamshaw as a manager. I think they over-rely a lot on the odd couple of players in their squad, and I do think defensively they are going to concede a fair few goals so far this season. At the start of the campaign, I had Rotherham to go down, and I'm not sure I'm really swaying against that at this moment in time, despite the recent upturn in form. In terms of Northampton, they don't score many goals. They've scored the joint least amount in the entire division, along with their rivals Peterborough United, but they've only conceded 13, which is less than some of the teams that are in the top 6. I mean, that is less than the top 2, for example, in Stockport and at Bradford City. So conceding goals isn't really a problem for them. It's trying to get them in the back of the net, and I do think they'll scrape a fair few 0-0s and 1-0s this season, but even still, I'm not 100% sure Northampton are one of them that you can say, yeah, they'll definitely be fine come the end of the season. Wicked Wanderers obviously had an awful start to the season under Mike Dodds, recently changed that and brought in Michael Duff, and since then they've been on a very good run of form, and I think out of every team from 12th downwards, they are, for me, the team that I'm most confident in that will definitely survive this season. I think they'll go on and push on and maybe have an outside chance of finishing in the playoffs, but they had such a bad start to the season that it might be a little bit too much of an ask for them this campaign. Exeter City, again, I've got a lot of concerns about them this campaign. I do think there is a real lack of quality in their squad. I predicted them to go down at the start of the campaign, and while recently 7 points from your last 4 matches is not the worst return in the world, I do still have my concerns about Exeter, because away from home they've probably been one of the worst teams on the road so far this campaign. In terms of performances, they've not really been in many games. They've really been trying to play for a lot of 0-0s and scrappy 1-0 wins, which they've had at times so far this campaign. You look at the 1-0 win away at Wickham, 1-0 win in the last minute away at Lincoln as well. They are proving that they can do that, but again, I do have my concerns about them. Reading recently sacked manager Noel Hunt and brought in Liam Richardson, who I think obviously won a League One title with Wigan Athletic a couple of seasons ago, and I think that's a solid appointment. I think they'll slowly start progressing up the table. I'm not 100% sure in my confidence in saying they'll definitely survive this campaign, but I think they'll be pushing more towards the top half rather than the relegation zone. I think there's far too much quality in that squad. The likes of Paudie O'Connor, Lewis Wing, Jack Marriott, that is a great League One spine. A lot of clubs at this level would take all three of those players and they go in and immediately start. So Reading for me, I think will be fine come the end of the campaign. Burton are a very weird one because recently they have been on a decent run of form, but prior to that they were absolutely awful, and they're just a very strange side of Burton. They're obviously comfortably the smallest club in this division, but they spent a lot of money last summer. I think Gary Bowyer is a man who knows how to get results, especially at the lower sort of end of the table, and I think they might survive come the end of the campaign, but I'm certainly not confident in that. Port Vale, I think Darren Moore for me is a massively overrated manager, and I do have a lot of concerns about Port Vale. Just 11 goals scored all campaign, and there's a lot of very talented players in their squad. On paper, it is a team that should be performing a lot better than 21st position. I know they lost Laurent Talai in the summer, but goodness me, just 2 points picked up in their last 4 matches, and you saw how they completely fell to bits against Stockport County. I know Stockport are a good side, but you're at home under the lights. You've got to make it nasty for them, and I thought it was far too easy for Stockport County. Plymouth Argyle, again, they recently have been on a very bad run of form. Just 1 point picked up from their last 4 matches. Obviously, they've conceded the most goals in the entire division, despite actually scoring most from the bottom 7 teams. So scoring goals is really not the issue. It's defensively and the amount of errors that they're producing, which are leading to goals. I do think if they can cut that out, they will climb up the table. But Plymouth, for me, they've got a lot of signs of a team that I think will be relegated. You know, there's a lot of discontent between the fans and the board and the manager. There's togetherness is the word that you would describe if you wanted the opposite of Plymouth Argyle. It's all over the place, and I do think that despite how big of a club you want to say you are, how much money you've spent, for example, if you don't have even a slight bit of togetherness, then the individual quality that you've got, which I do think Plymouth lack a lot in all honesty, I don't think there's many real proven League One quality players in their squad. I do think they could struggle this campaign. Blackpool obviously had a really awful start to the season under Steve Bruce, but obviously got off to a winning start under Ian Evatt. I think they also won their recent FA Cup match as well. So things are starting to look up for Blackpool, but again, 3 points from safety, having played a game more than a couple of the teams above them. I don't think you can definitely say they're going to stay up as of right now. And then obviously Peterborough United are currently bottom of the table, 5 points from safety, with a game in hand to be fair on a fair few of the teams around them, but 3 defeats from their last 4 matches. Obviously saw Darren Ferguson lose his job as Peterborough manager. They brought in Luke Williams and they beat Cardiff City in the first round of the FA Cup, a very good result for them. Prior to the Ferguson sacking and the Williams appointment, I was adamant that Peterborough were definitely going down this season, but I do think Luke Williams is a very good manager. They're certainly going to start scoring a lot of goals, but I could also see them conceding a few as well. So there is my brief overview of every League One side. At the start of the season, the 4 teams that I predicted to be relegated were Rotherham United, Northampton Town, Exeter City and AFC Wimbledon. Now we're going to go through and predict at this stage, do I agree or disagree with that? Now firstly, the team that I'm going to predict to go down as bottom of the League One table, I'm going to go with Exeter City. I feel like from the performances that I've seen of them so far this campaign, they did very well in their home clash against Plymouth Argyle, but I think the League One standard and the strength of this division, it's getting stronger and stronger. And yes, they did very well in that game against Plymouth, but away from home, a lot of the times their points they're picking up are very, very lucky. And you look at the underlying numbers, they're not looking positive. And even a couple of times this season at home, they have been very poor. So unfortunately for Exeter, someone has to finish bottom, and they who are, I am going to predict. In 23rd position, I'm going to go with Peterborough United, so a slight improvement on where they are in the table as of right now. And like I mentioned a couple of moments ago, I do think Luke Williams is a very good appointment, but you look at the squad, it's a massive squad at Peterborough, and I do think they'll play a very attractive style of play, but even the odd performance under Darren Ferguson, the underlying numbers did look very good, but the problem for Peterborough was they were off in both boxes. They were struggling to convert chances, and defensively they were giving away some very, very cheap goals. I think Peterborough have got some very good midfielders, the likes of Matt Garber and Archie Collins, for example, could prove to be very good players for this level, but I don't think they've got a proven goal scorer. Defensively, they look a bit frail as well. I think they'll be excellent in League 2 next campaign with Luke Williams, but for me personally, I think this season will be one step too far for the Posh, and they will be going down in 23rd. In 22nd position, I am going to go with Burton Albion. We've seen over the last couple of years in League 1 that some teams just don't quite have what it takes to survive at this level, and I do think Burton rely heavily at this moment in time on the likes of Charlie Webster in midfield. He's comfortably their best player, and I know there is recently Burton have been on a decent run of form, you know, picking up 10 points from their last 5 matches, but prior to that they picked up only 5 points from their opening 8 games, and I do think Burton, they always tend to go on a bit of a wobble, and I do think with them being the smallest club in this division, that could play a factor when you're going away to, I know they beat Cardiff away from home, but when you're going away to them bigger sort of grounds, I do think they could maybe crumble a little bit. I could be wrong on that occasion. I don't want it to just seem like I'm picking on the small boys, but unfortunately for Burton, with the quality that some of the teams around them do have at this level, I'm going to predict them to finish in 22nd. And the final team that I think will be going back down into League 2, I'm going to go with Port Vale. They're currently in 21st position, and I'm backing them to go down as well, which is unfortunate for them, but Darren Ferguson is just not a manager that I rate whatsoever. I think he could have the best squad in the entire division, and he's still always trying to nick a 1-0. You know, it's a very defensive style of play, and I do think there is some good players in that Port Vale squad, but just 11 goals scored all season. Defensively, you look at some of the goals they're giving up as well, it is just quite sloppy. You look at the third goal, I think it was, that Stockport scored last Monday, and for me that one comes down to a purely managerial thing, with him still having another 4 or 5 years left to run on his contract. They're not exactly going to want to sack him at this moment in time, so I do think Port Vale could be the final team to go down. So you'll have the likes of Plymouth just scraping, avoiding relegation, Northampton and Rotherham, and then maybe slightly higher up the table you have your Doncasters, your Wigans, your Readings, for example. I do think Blackpool will just about survive as well. I think Ian Evatt is a steady away manager for this level. There is some good talent in that Blackpool squad as well, and I do think they'll just about survive. They'll be in and around that 19th to 16th sort of place for me. Well, there we have it then. There is my updated League 1 relegation predictions. As always, it's not nice to say that teams are going to go down, but at the end of the season, after 46 games, 4 of you, hopefully not Bradford City, will be playing League 2 football next campaign, which is just an absolutely awful thing. Trust me, I've experienced 6 or 7 years of League 2. It is tragic, so I wish the best, nothing but the best to all of your clubs, but unfortunately 4 teams do have to go down. If you have enjoyed watching today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well. If you are new, can we try and hit 160 likes as I mentioned at the start of today's video, and don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. Let me know down below, who do you support and what 4 teams do you think will be playing League 2 football next campaign. Thank you all for watching, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon for another one.